It's a side effect of the pandemic no one saw coming. Darwin's rental market is in chaos and it's driving families out of their homes.
Facing homelessness is scary. I've lived here for the last 3 years and I've never had to worry about facing homelessness.
We've seen significant increase in tenants who are receiving termination notices so that landlords can re-advertise the property at a higher rent.
So simple economics is coming into play now, supply and demand, and unfortunately demand is outstripping supply.
It's that surge in demand that's left this Darwin mother facing eviction in a matter of weeks, with no new home for her family, despite dozens of rental inspections.
There were too many people, and I mean by like 40 plus people, and we ended up having to go through that many applications. We got denied by 15 to 20 houses.
With 2 children and another on the way, Talitha and her partner are being forced to move because the landlord wants to sell. After months of searching, the deadline to find a new rental property is looming closer.
It was a bit stressful to the point where I'd end up staying up, after my kids were put in bed and crying because I didn't know whether or not if I'd end up getting a place for my kids.
It's a frightening situation for anyone, but it's not an uncommon one. An influx of people moving from interstate since the pandemic began, combined with locals staying here, has the Darwin rental market stretched to the limit, and it's got tenants taking desperate measures.
They are having to make compromises. That can include having to take a property that doesn't necessarily meet their needs, and they're also being required to offer more than their advertised rental price on properties in order to compete with other applicants and applicants coming from interstate.
In 1 year, Darwin's gone from having the second highest vacancy rate in the country to the second lowest, with a 3.5% vacancy rate in 2019 dropping to 0.9% in 2020. It's the biggest drop in availability of any capital city, and a world away from Melbourne, where vacancies surged during the pandemic. The Northern Territory currently allows no grounds terminations of tenancy agreements, giving landlords the power to evict without reason. During the coronavirus pandemic, the notice period a landlord had to give a tenant to vacate was extended from 42 to 60 days. That amendment will expire in March.
We do think that if tenants aren't given adequate notice that their lease is being terminated, that it may well result in an increase in our homeless population, and these are tenants who've perhaps never faced a prospect of homelessness before.
It's not just availability that's a problem, it's the cost as well. In just 12 months, rental prices for houses in Darwin surged 27.3%, while unit rental prices jumped 5.6%. In fact, prices have increased so much in recent times, the cost of renting in Darwin is now on par with Sydney. For an average home, it'll set you back around $550 a week, while for units, it's $420.
Under other states' COVID measures, the ability for a landlord to increase rent was prohibited. The Northern Territory didn't implement any such legislation, so rent increases have continued during COVID when many Territorians were in vulnerable financial positions.
It's hard for the locals because they're used to rents being at a certain level, and then now all of a sudden they're being pushed upwards. And same with purchase prices as well. Many people are wanting to move to the regions, but prices are rising almost right before their eyes.
For tenants looking for relief, there's no end in sight, with demand for more houses expected to grow.
We need to face up to reality that the issues around building more properties and providing more land for that, we need to make all those processes much, much easier because it's going to take us a good decade or two to get to where we need to be.
For Talitha and her family, they need a solution in days, not decades, as eviction looms.
The closer it gets, the more nervous I become, the more of my anxiety hits the roof, and the stress levels become a lot higher because you've got so many people you're up against and limited time.
Limited time in a limited market.